Hey, good morning for those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. We're going to get started here in just a split second. I'm running around. I started a new LinkedIn group, and I've been putting a lot of content up there, and so I was a little distracted, but I'm going to show that to you as a tip. Let me just get in. When I do these lives, I like to be able to just look at the LinkedIn just to make sure I'm tracking on it. So sorry about this for not looking. Usually 135 plus episodes. I'm usually way more ready when I walk in, but sometimes you get a little off, and I am right now, but our content's going to be great because I took a lot of time to prepare. Actually, you can see it all here. Whenever I do these trainings, I try to mind map it out on what I want to talk to you so I can give you really good tips. So I'm with Jordan Liu, where I'm reading It's a Glorious Monday. I'm excited to be able to share with you some of my insight on the biggest problem I think that holds us back. And I've been in this position before. It's how I can understand it, relate to it as a small business owner. And I'm hoping you'll find value in the tips as well. So I got a deck I'm using to guide myself. Let me just pull this up right here. I'm not going to share it. I like to talk to you as we go forward, but let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to dive into the biggest problem that all of us, that hold us back from achieving goals that we're trying to achieve or that we set for ourselves. And when I do this training, it's not about a silver bullet. It's not about a magic pill. It's about recognizing where we're at compared to where we want to be. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, right? Is how do we go from where we're at to where we want to be? Well, we need to figure out what's holding us back from making that transformation. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to my daily LinkedIn Live sales training in the federal market, where I teach tips and process and procedures for success. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When you follow a process, you're going to have predictable results. And that's what I want for you. Before we get started, do me a favor. Help me, buyers, and people in this community know who you are. Put your company name into the chat. Put 2 or 3 words that tell me about your core competency and let other people know. We've done over 135 of these federal sales trainings. So pretty much except for the 1 week where I got COVID and I just was out of commission, I couldn't do it. We've done it every single day. And I'm excited to bring this to you. But we have built a community. We routinely get 50 or 100 people who watch this live and over 1,000 people who watch the replays. And so we're really excited about that. Those of you who come live, you're able to interact with others in this community, which is a great way to network. Why should you have to pay $1,000, go to a conference to network, or go to some agency matchmaking event just to network? Yes, those events are valuable, but you don't have to wait for them to network. There's people right here in this community that are just like you. They're in the federal market, and most everybody who's here is willing to connect. So just let people know who you are. And don't ever feel like you can do it too much. Always put your company name and your core competencies in. I call it sitting in the front row. Never find yourself sliding all the way back to the back of the room and out to the registration desk saying, hey, I'll just greet people. No. Be in the front row so you can get the best of the training you're going to get, and also you can meet the most people. As we go through today's training, interact with people in the community, but also interact with me. As I push through these topics I want to share with you, I'm going to ask you at different points to put stuff in chat to let me know that you're tracking. So go ahead and do that for me as we go along, and I would really appreciate that. Okay, I think we're good to go. If you haven't been here before, I go at a fire hose pace, and today it's going to be even more, I think, of that fire hose pace because I easily got 5 hours worth of content that I want to share in 30 minutes. Okay, so let's talk about the biggest problem holding you back. When I start thinking about this topic, I think about where I've been or where you might be at this moment. And just as I'm going along, think about these situations I'm going to describe. And you don't have to put it in the chat, but just think to yourself whether you're running into these any of these scenarios where maybe you're having a meeting with a government buyer, small business professional, program office, whoever. You're having a meeting, a first meeting, but they're never bringing you back for a second meeting. Right? Maybe you're writing RFIs and they feel like they're going into oblivion because you write them and you barely get a response that they received them, but no input on what did they think, where is it going? Where people tell you that sometimes when you write an RFI, like I will tell you, it will lead to discussions. Well, where's the discussions? I'm not getting those. Maybe you're writing proposals and you're not winning. Sometimes we follow all the advice, and maybe this is you. You're following all the advice that we give you, people like me and PTACs and others, but you're not seeing progress, or you're attending all the right events. I said the matchmaking events, things like that. You're attending all the right events, but you don't feel like you're getting any kind of real progress or that any doors are being opened, right? And maybe that's what you're experiencing when you're showing up to this training, wondering about what's that thing you're running into. One of the ones I hear more than anything else is I leave voicemails, I send emails, but I don't get any response. And I've taught a lot on this. How do you get people to respond back to you? But maybe you're running into those things. And these are the challenges you're facing. Today's training is going to address this and to try to take away that, pain that you might be feeling as you try to do your job in the federal market. And so if you want me to do that and you understand what I'm talking about, you can relate to the scenarios I described, just put in the chat, take away the pain. Let me know you understood the scenario that many of us face. So take away the pain. As you're doing that, I want you to think in your mind of adding this word yet to your vocabulary almost everywhere. And so one of the examples you could think about adding yet is no one's responding to my phone calls yet, right? My RFIs aren't getting me into have other meetings yet. I'm not winning yet. If you put yet at the end of what you're thinking and what you're running into, what you do is start telling yourself that, yes, I'm attending events, but I'm not getting the progress I want yet. The yet means that you can get what you want. It's just not getting it yet. And it's this variation on that. If you've ever heard this, is a classic old American thing where we talk about there's no such word as can't. I grew up in that world, right? There's just, are you an American or American't, and that kind of stuff. And I liked this new thinking when I heard about it a year or 2 years ago, and I actually heard it as it related to teaching my kids, which I instantly just applied to myself, is that my kids say, I can't ride the bike or something. You can't ride it yet, right? I can't get my kids to behave. I can't get my kids to behave yet. I can't get the KO to take my call. I can't get the KO to take my call yet. Put yet in there, and when you do, you're giving yourself, you're telling yourself that you will be able to ride the bike. You will be able to get the contracting officer to call you back. You're just not able to do it yet. And so with the right skills and practice, you will start getting traction on that. And when you do, I believe you're going to start seeing the success that you want, right? I talk about the biggest problem holding you back. But once you stop being held back, you are going to be able to achieve the success you want. Imagine seeing progress on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, where as you're doing the right things, you've learned skills and you're doing some of the right things and you're figuring out how to improve it. And pretty soon you start seeing progress every day, every week, every month. It's a little progress every day, but it begins to put you in this mindset of things are going in the right direction, right? Imagine emails and voicemails being responded to. When you actually are able to consistently expect an email or a voicemail to get somebody to respond to you, right? When you can count on people replying back to you, it starts making you feel good. Imagine the impact these little wins can have on you and your team and your motivation, right? You come in, you're like, we had a great day yesterday. We're going to have a great day today. And tomorrow's going to be a great day as well. When you start feeling these little teeny wins, they begin to add up. And to me, this comes from process, right? Not from luck, not from a magic pill or a silver bullet, but it comes from understanding how to do the little things. What are they? How to do them right? And then getting good at doing them. How would your chances for success, think about this, how would your chances for success on winning an opportunity that you're pursuing increase if you're able to have follow-up meetings with contracting officers or program office personnel? These people talk to you and then they say, yeah, come on back. If you need anything, come on back. Yes, come in and talk to us about your thinking on solutioning. Yes, come in and ask us any more questions you want on our challenges. Imagine the chances of your success going up with the when you start having follow-up meetings over and over. And imagine buyers and teammates calling you, right? This happens. I get called. I routinely get called. And I got called when I had my last company, right? Because we were focused in one particular area. But there was no way I was getting called as much as I could have if I had known the process I've developed or really began to understand and teach over the last 5 years. And this is what I want for you, is that when you put yourself in the right position and you address the biggest problem holding you back, you will not only start feeling good about what's going on and feel like you're doing the right things and they're delivering the right results, but pretty soon people just start calling you And that's a good feeling. So if you want more success in all aspects of your business, whether your job is a business developer or you're a business owner and you want it in sales and you want it in the relationships you're doing, if you want more success, put more success in the chat. Let me know you're following me as I'm talking. So put more success in the chat. As you're doing that, I want to talk about responsibility. I love talking about this idea of if a person takes responsibility, if you or I take responsibility, then we are in control. This idea that if I say somebody else has responsibility, then they also have control. I want control of my future, so I'm going to take responsibility. You must take responsibility for what's holding you back. No matter what the situation is, you got to take responsibility and say, I'm responsible for what's holding me back. And only when you take responsibility will you have the control to drive your future, to stop what's holding you back and to start achieving the success you want. And so this is just a little thing I want you to keep in mind, kind of like that word yet, is that when you take responsibility, you have control over your future. You have control to address the biggest problems that might be blocking you from moving towards your goals. And so if you understand that, put I'm responsible in the chat. Let me know that you're responsible, because I'm about to go through the rest of this, like 20 minutes, teaching you how to address the challenge. So put I'm responsible in the chat as we go forward here. Okay, so as we go forward, one of the things, and I appreciate people engaging in the chat, it's really helpful for people to just reiterate or remind yourselves and have that message sink in that I'm trying to teach you here today. The biggest problem I think that small businesses have holding us back, you and me, in any aspect, right? I have all this stuff I'm trying to do to support you and things like that. Well, what's my biggest problem? What's holding me back? And I believe the biggest problem, the way I describe it, is not actually knowing what is holding us back. And I use this term regroup, where sometimes you just got to stop and regroup. Regroup on your life, regroup on your business, regroup on your day-to-day tasks that you're doing. And I want you to think about this from federal sales, from a 7-step process. I'm going to come back and talk about all this in a minute, but just in case we have people who haven't seen this graph before, let me share this graphic right here. This is the 7-step process for federal government success, federal revenue success, right? The entire activity that you do to achieve sales and success in the federal government comes down to these 7 steps. You must be visible and look good where the buyers are, right? You must target the right people and then call them. That's outreach. When you do that, you will build relationships that lead to opportunities that will enable you to write great proposals and then win sales. So I want you to keep this process in mind as I talk about it. But the thing that's important about this is the biggest thing holding us back, the biggest problem holding us back, is we don't know where in this 7-step process we're actually having the challenge. And that's what I want to talk to you about. And I want to kind of reverse engineer that process, if I will, with you. And I want you to follow along and think about, am I running into a problem here? Is this where I really have a problem? Or if not, then then keep going back to the next step and the next step. And I'm going to walk you through that in the next 10 minutes. So the first thing is sales, right? If you're not making enough sales in the federal market, if you're not hitting the $2 million a year goal or $10 million a year goal that you've got for you and your company, you and your colleagues, right? If you're not hitting that goal, why is that? Are you blaming the contracting officer for putting out unclear requirements or PWS or RFPs? I mean, are you blaming the contract acquisition approach, like it's on a different vehicle, or it's not on a different vehicle, but the key personnel is too hard? Are you blaming your competitors who wrote a winning proposal because they wrote too low of a price? And the reason I want you to think about that is because winning is on you, not on your competitors, not on the KO. And if you're not winning enough and you look into that opportunity that maybe you just lost, or the opportunities you're losing, if you're looking at that and blaming the KO or the program office or the agency, or you're blaming your competitors, then you have put responsibility on them for your success. But if you sit there and put responsibility on yourself and you take control, then you begin to realize winning's on me. And if you understand that, put winning is on me as I move into the next phase, right? If I'm not winning proposals, then I have to look at the proposals I'm submitting. Am I submitting winning proposals? I created this kind of anti-P-win, if you will, approach to business development, or capture in particular, that is called the winning proposal score. And I have a whole training separate on that. But when you have a winning proposal score, then you know that you're submitting a proposal that is absolutely going to win. The KO, the contracting officer, is going to struggle because it's like, oh, do I go that person, that person? Just because you're submitting a winning proposal doesn't mean your competitor didn't also submit a winning proposal. But all you have control over is whether you're submitting winning proposals. Do you even know what a winning proposal is for you? Right? Forget about all of us experts out there in the industry and all this kind of stuff. Do you understand what a winning proposal is? Have you talked to your customer to understand what winning proposals are? When we sit there and scattershot across many agencies, we never get the time to talk to contracting officers to understand, why do people win and why do people lose sometimes? There's the obvious stuff, right? Compliance. But then there's this other stuff where the government says, you don't understand us. We didn't feel like you understood us. And so you have to look at your proposal and go, are we writing winning proposals? And I put down a metric. I think I might even have a handout, Gus, on that, right? But I certainly have a training on how do you write a winning proposal. And it just comes down to this point system. But the biggest part, and it's going to go into the next one, which is opportunities, it's having slam dunk opportunities that you're writing proposals for, not proposals that you should not be writing. So if you understand that in order to win more business, you must submit winning proposals, put winning proposals into the chat. Let me know you're following along with me. So as we back up from sales to proposals to the step before that, it's opportunities. And this is your pipeline, right? So it's a combination of capture activity and your pipeline. Capture to me kind of blends in between opportunity step and proposal step, but opportunities are in your pipeline. Do you have junk in your pipeline, or do you have slam dunk opportunities? Slam dunk opportunities are ones that no one in your company has to rationalize for it to be in your pipeline, right? If somebody has to justify to you, or you have to justify to somebody else why it belongs in there, then that's not a slam dunk opportunity. You might still decide to leave it in the pipeline, but it's not a slam dunk. A slam dunk is when everybody looks at it and goes, that's ours. That was written by us for us, kind of thing, right? When you look at it, you're like, we're winning this one. That's what needs to be in your pipeline. Don't let anybody tell you that there's not enough slam dunk opportunities out there for you. There are, but it takes business development activities to find them and get them into your pipeline. When you distract yourself with junk in your pipeline, you're not out searching for the next slam dunk, you're working on junk, right? And so this idea of your pipeline, it's really important. You can't write winning proposals unless you have slam dunk opportunities in your pipeline. Even if your pipeline is just a spreadsheet with a list of opportunities going after, only go after the opportunities you know you can win. When you do that, you have a chance of writing winning proposals, which will 1 out of 4 times at least win, is my numbers on that. So if you understand what I'm saying about your pipeline needs to have slam dunk, not junk opportunities, put slam dunk opportunities into the chat. Let me know you're following along. Okay, so relationships. Relationships are how I describe, it's the only way you're going to hear about opportunities, right? Of course, you can go to sam.gov, and of course, you can go to GovWin and FPDS. Those are just tools. But relationships are where you learn about opportunities, relationships with teammates and relationships with the buyer, right? And so you have to think to yourself right now, as you're trying to figure out what is the thing holding me back? It's understanding where you're at. Do you have a great pipeline? If you have a great pipeline, then maybe you don't have to come back to this relationship step. But if you feel like you don't have a pipeline full of slam dunk opportunities, then I suggest you look now at relationships. Have you defined what a strategic relationship means to your company? Have you determined the number you need? I say you need a minimum of 8 strategic relationships in industry, 8 strategic relationships with teaming partners, and then you need as many as you can in your target agency. But have you defined what those relationships are? And then have you built them? You know, if you're trying to get into the Navy, as an example, have you built out strategic relationships with 2 or 3 large firms and 3, 4, 5 small businesses in the different categories? So you hear about opportunities that are woman-owned set aside, or Oasis contract vehicles set aside, things like that. If you haven't even defined it, then how could you build strategic relationships? And if you don't build strategic relationships, you will not have the number of opportunities that you really want in your pipeline, right? Opportunities, by the way, are prime contracts or subcontracts. It doesn't matter. If you can get on a $100 million contract and get a $5 million a year piece of it, that's a good contract, right? So sub or prime is not what I'm talking about here. It's just talking about growth and moving forward, trying to achieve your goals. But you have to have strategic relationships in order to hear about opportunities. Inside the agency, you'll hear about opportunities very early as they talk to the future. If you go look at some of the LinkedIn posts I've been doing, especially today, a lot of them I put out are deep dives into the Navy program offices. Somewhere over there, I'm doing this activity, and forgive me from turning around, but over there I'm looking at a wall and I'm working with a particular customer who's going after the Navy. And the first level of my customer could be the Department of Defense. But then I went down six more levels to the Department of Navy, to the Navy, not to Navy. So Department of Navy, PEO Digital, profiles within PEO Digital, then technical forum areas or technical focus areas, and then Microsoft 365, and then Office Flying Speed. And I don't know if you see it. It's over there. It's the bottom. It might be hard to see, or maybe don't even see it at all. But my point is, you go down and you're building relationships with these people at the agencies. When you do, you'll hear about opportunities. When you don't have strategic relationships, how can you hear about opportunities except for the way everybody else does? SAM or GovWin, as an example. So if you understand the value of strategic relationships and maybe you need them, put it into the chat, strategic relationships into the chat, and let me know you understand what I'm saying about having strategic relationships leads to a pipeline that has slam dunk opportunities. So as we move forward, if you don't have strategic relationships, it could be because you have no clue who to talk to, and maybe you're not doing outreach properly. So the step before relationships in the 7-step process is outreach. Are you are you warming up the leads, right? So it's not about knowing who it is yet, because that's the step before this. But at this stage, are you warming up leads? Are you engaging with them on LinkedIn? Are you attending events? I got a friend who just went to an Air Force event and was walking around meeting and talking to some of the people he's building the relationships with. So are you building up these relationships, or are you warming up these relationships when they're still in the lead status? So when you start building the relationship and you start having meetings, you're able to make it a strategic relationship that's strong. Do you go into your meetings? This is outreach section that I'm talking about here. Do you go into meetings with a call plan? A call plan is a written piece of paper. You print it out. Don't even leave it on the computer. Do it on the computer, print it out, and it has an objective, what you're trying to achieve in a meeting. It has questions. When you have these things, you start building better relationships with people because you're asking questions that they care about. People don't do business with people do business with ones they know and like and trust. But actually what I was trying to say is people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And what that means to me is if you're asking questions about them and what they're running into or what they want to do, instead of saying, here's my product, here's my service, et cetera, then they know that you care and you begin to have a better relationship. Plus you begin to learn about them more, and you can figure out, how do I develop that relationship farther? And so this is outreach. When you're trying to reach out to somebody with an email or a phone call or a first meeting that doesn't get, remember first meetings that aren't getting followed up? Well, are you warming up those leads? Are you using a call plan that makes them want to build a relationship with you? You know that you want to have a relationship with them, but you've been thinking about them a lot longer than they've been thinking about you. So you have to kind of bring them along. And all of this outreach activity is where you're making a first impression. You're making a first impression on LinkedIn. You're making a first impression with your voicemail or your email when you outreach to them. You're making a first impression when you have that first meeting. These are all different first impression type approaches. And all of those lead to the relationship. Well, if you're not working on that correctly, if you don't have processes on how do I properly reach out to somebody, how do I properly have a meeting, if you haven't thought about that, then maybe that's holding you back from the relationships, right? So if you understand what I'm talking about on outreach is this first impression arena, and you need to improve it if you're not building relationships, put first impressions into the chat. Let me know that you understand that first impressions are important. The last two are, and I'm going to move pretty fast on this, is the one right before outreach, which is my favorite, is targeting, because this is the one I feel most people struggle with the most. They don't know who to call, and maybe you're like this, right? Is that I want to get into CDC and I have no idea who to talk to, where to go, how to get in. I love this because I just have a really good, strong skill set on this about getting in. But you can, if you're not having meetings, right? If you're not even feel like you're having enough meetings, you don't even have enough people to call, then your challenge might be with the targeting. Targeting in the 7-step process is about focusing on the agency you want. Remember over there, I try to use that example about not just DoD, not just Navy, but all the way down into the program office, into the projects in the program office, right? So I'm even below the program office. So getting in there, that's focus on the agency. And then you are able to start identifying the right people. Are you focused on an agency? Are you specifically trying to find the right people in that agency from both the buyer side and industry or teammates side, right? And so when you look in, I was just thinking about, or talking about that Navy one, I'm going to line up. I just found like 20 or 30 people right down at a low office, but I'm going to find teammates who are also in there and use them as a way to begin to learn more and maybe develop relationships with them that I can get in or help my customer get in. And that's something you can do once you've targeted onto an agency, onto a program office, and then begin to target the people you're trying to reach out to. And so my point here is when you think about what's holding you back, if what you're really not achieving is many meetings, then how can you have relationships, right? Well, you can't have meetings unless you know who to talk to. That's targeting. Maybe targeting is your challenge. And the last one is visibility. So at all different aspects, visibility is this idea of, are you blaming the KO, or excuse me, are you visible to the KO? Are you visible to your teammates? When you try to reach out to people, they're going to look at you. When you are in the initial stages of building a relationship, that might be LinkedIn, that might be your website. How do you look? On Dynamic Small Business Search, DSBS, how do you look? When somebody looks at you, after you reach out to them, they're going to come back and look at you. So in the beginning, they're just looking to say you do cyber, do you look like you're a cyber company? If you're farther along, maybe they're looking to see you in CPARS. If you're not in CPARS or FPDS, maybe in the Dynamic Small Business Search, these three are all government tools. Maybe in the DSBS tool, they want to see at the bottom all of your experience. Does your capability statement invite them to have conversations with you? That's a visibility tool that they look at the tool and they can say in 6 seconds, this is what your company does and this is where you've done it. Tell me more, John, right? You want to be visible to the buyer. If you're not visible to the buyer, then they're not going to want to. And when I say visible, by the way, I mean attractive. And sorry, let me correct that. So visibility is about findability and being attractive. Attractive means when they're looking for a cyber company, or when you reach out and say, hey, we're a cyber company, as an example, and they look back at you, are you an attractive cyber company? And it doesn't mean you have to have billions in business, but do you speak to cyber? There's a company out there, Assurit. And if you go to their website, I'm going to share it out at some point. They have a fantastic website. I was saying I'm going to share it out with the industry, but theirs is an example of perfect. When I look at their website, it's perfectly describing their company's core competency around cyber. Every part of it makes me have more confidence in them. Plus the fact that they have past performance, right, is just good. And that's what you want as well. So, when you think about visibility, it's really important for your ability to work with customers and develop relationships. And it could even impact all the way to the last step of, are you submitting winning proposals and sales? Well, that's all impacted by earlier steps in the process. So it's a long activity here that I went through about trying to help you understand the biggest problem. But the biggest problem, just bringing this back, is that I find people don't know where they're actually having the challenges. And so the biggest problem is not the challenge you're running into, but do you know where your bottleneck is? Do you know what's actually holding you back? Is the proposal the problem, or is the fact that you have no relationship so you can't learn anything to add to that proposal the problem? And I would submit, if you take the time and look at the 7-step process, that you will find that you'll get some improvement, because in a one-day exercise, you can look and say, where are we really having our challenges, and begin to address it. If you don't have relationships, go build relationships. And pretty soon you'll start seeing proposals, opportunities, and sales improving because you improved relationships. So it's a whole lot of activity there. If it makes sense to you, put 7-step process in and let me know you understood the 7-step process. If you want a copy of that handout, you can let us know, but it's also on, we'll have it on our website. So I'll tell you tomorrow if you come back. One of the things to keep in mind, though, is as you look at the 7-step process, and even if you're having challenges and problems, guaranteed you can knock it out. Just because you're not winning, remember, you're not winning yet. Government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.